Okay, welcome once again, Pat. We're going to try something new today, as you know.
Morning, Jude.
Sort of a midweek thing. We're going to have a look at the papers, what it says in the papers, or what it says on the websites. And because we're pressed for time, it'll be very short time in each one of them. And one of the things I picked out, Pat, and I think you had it yourself, was from that Irish Central website, run by Niall O'Dowd, the Irish American, was very involved in the lead up to the Good Friday Agreement. But he has a story there, and it's headlined, Robert Kennedy Jr. claims Bill Gates owns the World Health Organization. What did you think of that story?
If you, Jude, if you like myself, if you go on Facebook and social media, you'll see now the number of conspiracy theorists out there is phenomenal. And I think it's a deliberate ploy. I think a lot of it's coming from the Trump people. There's a massive campaign to shift the onus away from Trump about his handling of in America. Now, I don't think Kennedy would be a natural follower of Trump, but the Americans have gone on big time for this conspiracy theory. Now, there's a person comes on to me every day trying to tell me, look, this is all one big con. Now, my simple answer, Jude, and I know you've got a view on it, that this is basically a light flu. Last year in Italy, they didn't have to call in the army to bury people because of a light flu. And there's almost 100,000 people dead in America. So, Jude, this absolute rubbish that it's a conspiracy theory. When it's all over, it certainly needs investigation, just exactly what did go wrong, but this is not the time.
Now, this story quotes Kennedy, Robert Kennedy. Now, Robert Kennedy Jr. is the son of the
Robert Kennedy.
Robert Kennedy. But he says that the Bill Gates funds 10% of the World Health Organization's budget, and that as a result of that, half of the budget goes to Bill Gates' polio vaccine program. Now, most of us would agree that the polio vaccine program is a good thing, but Kennedy says, I think Gates is well intended in the same way the missionaries who brought smallpox to the Indians were well intended.
Judy, a lot of the Gates thing is they're claiming that he's spreading information. What he's actually doing is telling people to go to the World Health Organization, the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. He's saying, stop listening to the conspiracy theorists. Get your information from reputable sources. And that's considered propaganda now. In other words, facts no longer matter.
I agree with you completely. And I know some people, who have been faced with that choice. Remember there was a whole hoo-ha about, was it a triple vaccination for babies or something like that?
Yeah.
People were pulling back because there were stories that this was bad for the kids, and they give them, I don't know what it was, Down syndrome or something. But he makes the point, Kennedy makes an interesting point. He says, there was a time when the effort was to try to eradicate disease by eradicating poverty.
Yeah.
And he says, Bill Gates is ignoring the poverty and is saying the answer comes out of a vaccination simply. There's something to be said for that. Not that I would say not have vaccination, but at the same time, I think it's very important to treat much of the causes of these diseases, which would be rooted in poverty.
Absolutely, Jude. But Bill Gates is not a politician. He is not. He doesn't have his hands on the levers of power in America. He is a businessman. He's a capitalist and whatever. No, as far as I know, I hate to be batting for Bill Gates, but as far as I know, he's got the Bill Gates Foundation, which provides millions, if not billions, per year for good causes. Now, I often I'm a bit cynical about rich men and good causes, but that's. I can tell you a quick thing. Years ago, and I shouldn't really use a personal thing, but I will. Our youngest son had a very serious asthma problem, and my wife was very concerned about it. He was on steroids. He was taking Ventolin, and he was only about 4 or 5. And I took him over to the doctor over in Altney-Galvin, and it was a young Egyptian doctor. And I said, look, my wife is very concerned. He's only 4, and he's taking all this sort of stuff. And he gave me the best answer I've ever got. He looked at it and he says, yes, Mr. McGard, that I would worry too. But he says, can I explain it to you this way? He says, much better the prevention than the attack. In other words, what he was saying, my son had a very serious asthma problem. He said that if he got an asthma attack, that was much more serious than the medicine he was taking to prevent the attack. So, and I after that, I said, fair point, because when our Paddy was 4, he had a couple of very worrying, serious, and actually frightened me really, really badly. So after that, I took his point very well. So, like, do we want to go back to polio, diphtheria, scarlet fever? Vaccines mightn't be good. I am not out batting for them either, but they're better than what happens if we don't have the vaccines.
Some of us remember those days, you know, and it was no joke with TB and all these other various diseases. I think poor Robert Kennedy kind of undermines his own argument, because he adds on to that the fact that Bill Gates controls 5G. I'm not even quite clear what 5G is. I think it's some sort of system of phones. He says 5G is about surveillance and it's about data harvesting. He's probably got a point there, but once again, it's assuming that any advance like this is going to have all sorts of conspiracy stuff working in the background.
Jude, you know, the conspiracy, there was a man I knew well there. He says, just because he says you accuse me of being paranoid, but he says that doesn't mean they aren't after me. There's an element of truth in that, but you know, Jude, you can make a conspiracy theory out of anything, you know, and it's so easy. And half the time when you go and look in the facts, you discover that's not true, and that's not true. But it doesn't seem to stop people coming out with these theories.
For sure. I've seen Kennedy interviewed on TV, and he doesn't look a well man himself, actually. I think he's got some medical problems. Anyway, let's go on to a second story. This one's from The Guardian and from other newspapers as well, I'm sure. And the headline is, Jacinta Ardern flags 4-day working week as way to rebuild New Zealand after COVID-19. She's the Prime Minister, as you know, of New Zealand, and she's saying if we get a 4-day, many people like the idea of a 4-day working week, and if we had it, that would be a way of rebooting the economy. What's your response then?
Jude, I think New Zealand has been the template of how to deal with COVID. I read it yesterday. I don't think they've any live cases at the minute, and they've only had 21 deaths from. Now, 21 deaths is very, condolences to all the concerned, but compared to what Spain, Italy, Britain, America, 21 deaths because they went hard line from day one. So this woman has handled everything right. Now, I read what she said. She said basically 4-day week could be a way of going again. And she's saying, look, it's not, as a Prime Minister, it's not her job. It's obviously a matter between employers and employees. But she said this whole thing has really opened up the idea that people can work from home. There's a flexibility of people working. So a 4-day week is not out of the question. And I think when this is all over, Jude, the guy who's in charge of the JP Morgan, can't remember his name now. He's a billionaire apparently. He's saying when this is over, we're going to have to look at the whole thing about fairness in society, about equality. Now, when it's coming from sources like that, Ardern's point, I think, is well made. By the way, what's your view?
Well, I think the 4-day week's a really good idea, and I think people would respond to that, because we all know that at work there's periods of time where you faff around, and you would learn to be efficient if you've got a 4-day week. You'd have to get the same amount of work done, but in a more compressed time. And I think most people would go with that. My first teaching job was in a school where the working day began at 8:15 and ended at 1:30.
Yeah.
That was bloody marvellous. It was marvellous. I had a half day to myself, really, Although I had
work-life balance, Jude.
So same principle. Yeah. The other thing you see, she ties that to the tourist industry in New Zealand. She says that if you had a 4-day week, a lot of New Zealanders would have time on their hands and they would have staycations, as it were.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating idea. I wonder, would people, if we had a 4-day week here, do you think more people would go and visit Donegal or Galway or Kerry?
Absolutely, Jude. Myself and my dear missus, our kids are up and gone. And some days prior to this COVID, we would simply get in the car and go for a drive just to get, because we have the time. Now, I have 3 kids and they're all have got their own lives. But can you imagine if they had a 4-day week? Like somebody would say, right, let's go down to Leitrim and go to Carrick and Shannon, go out in the boat out on the Shannon or something. You can do anything, I would think the people, if they've got the time, Jude, will go exploring. And if all you need, you don't need a massive amount of money. Like half the time, me and dear wife is get in the car, stop off somewhere and get a cup of coffee, carry out. You don't have to be going and get a huge big meal and a sandwich or and you can have a lovely day out at a very little cost.
Even you didn't move, even you stayed at home. That notion of 4 days working and 3 days not working, I think it rights the balance a wee bit and reminds you that human beings were made not for work, work was made for them. So, that their spare time is as important in some ways as their, but she's got a good point, and you have too, the idea that people would actually go and visit places. And tourism needs that because they're not going to have people coming from outside.
Not anytime soon.
Going to put the knockers in that. Okay, a final story, and it's the big story because, as you said when I was talking to you earlier, Brexit is pushing its way into the spotlight once again as we begin to move out of the COVID-19 story. And the Irish Times editorial on that a couple of days ago was headed "Trouble Ahead."
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the trouble that they're facing?
Well, Jude, the single market, Britain seems to want this. Boris Johnson, first of all, it's ideological. They're saying no matter what happens, they're out on the 31st of December, whatever it is, and so on. But they're saying now that they're going to have light touch regulation and no additional customs. So anything can come from Britain into Northern Ireland, and then the back door into the EU is through the south of Ireland. So if Britain thinks the EU is going to agree to what is being proposed this week, they are kidding themselves. They're using this term light touch. It means no touch. In other words, where's the respect for the single market? And I can't see the Europeans agreeing to this. Sure, if this is the case, Britain has got their cake and eaten it.
But the difficulty is, Pat, the Irish Times agrees with you. It says the UK government has set its face against this despite the epidemic, and it shows that the priorities of Brexit continue to be driven by ideology rather than by practicalities and common sense. But, for example, if the terrible fear is that stuff will come from GB into the north and then will find its way down to the south and penetrate the EU market. Now, if there's no deal, where is the border going to be then?
That's it. The border is going to be on between Donegal somewhere and my TV's just come on in the middle of all this.
All right, anyway, I can't hear. Yeah. So you see, I think they'll have to have a border of some kind. Might it be that the EU is just or that the UK is just saying light touch so that the DUP don't get upset?
Yeah, but Jude, they keep saying things like this, but like light touch right now probably will literally be light touch. I think they're trying to keep the unionists happy, and they're trying to keep the Brexiteers happy. And this whole thing, we're leaving on the 31st. Jude, if they try and do what they propose this week, I can't see. Simon Coveney he says it's a step in the right direction. I think in the middle of COVID, he doesn't want to start all this up again. But I can't see Barnier and people, I guess, agreeing to. Jude, it's not. There's single market is no longer the single market if they agree to this, because here's something simple. If some big farmer, and I'm making this up, somewhere in Norwich or Devon, sends cattle over to Northern Ireland and then puts them on, and there's light touch regulations, and then they send them on down into the south of Ireland, down as far as Rosslare, and chucks them over to France. Like, what's to stop them doing it? Like, so there are some cheap TVs that they can make somewhere in Birmingham or something else. If they can take it into the south of Ireland, they're in the back door into Europe. And by the way, that's hypothetical, but it's doable. I'm sure there'll be some entrepreneur somewhere who can figure out a way to get into Europe through the Republic of Ireland.
Yeah, but you see, if there's no deal, the border will have to be, will transform from a border at Larne or wherever.
It'll be Strabane, Derry.
So we'll be back at square one.
Absolutely.
Not so. And the fact of the matter is, the British have said again and again they're not going to go for an extension. And I think if they're going to go for an extension, they've got to say that by next month.
Yeah, exactly. That they have to. Jude, I'm going to do this one on you deliberately because you avoided it the last day we were chatting.
Okay.
I read a big discussion yesterday, and it's on the New York Times about normal people. This is a phenomenon. You read any paper, it's everywhere. It's in fact Dermot Ferreter is on the Irish Times this morning talking about. Yeah. What is your, as a former English teacher, come social commentator, come political guru? What's your personal view of all this?
I only watched one episode. That was the first episode, and in fact, I did a review for the Andy Town News where I do a column, and I said one of the great things about it was that there was very few explosions and very little bonking. Most of the kids kept their clothes on. And then the second episode came on, and I gathered there was wall-to-wall flesh. And that's the point that Dermot Ferreter is making. He says that they really have gone to the other extreme, and that from a time when Oliver J. Flanagan could say there was no sex in Ireland until the Late Late Show came in, we've now gone to the extreme where there's nothing but heaving bodies and acres of flesh. Yeah. I'll give you my verdict. We'll have to stop then. Yeah. My verdict on normal people is boring. I'll be honest with you. I found the first episode, maybe I should watch more of it, but I did watch the first episode very carefully, and it was okay. It was okay. Awkward teenagers trying to get off with each other, a young guy playing Gaelic football, popularity versus non-popularity, smart girl versus lovely girls. Frankly, it didn't grab me. But I'm finding out more and more, Pat, that my tastes maybe are related to age. Maybe that's what the way things should be. You know, that you have to have your dad hating something in order for it to be good.
Right. We'll leave it there.
Okay. Right, Pat. Thanks very much.
All the best, Jude.
Right.